this. Picture this. It is Saturday morning. You have nowhere to be. No alarm, no meeting, no obligation pulling at you. And within about 11 minutes of waking up, you reach for your phone. Most people do. And most people will spend somewhere between 3 and 5 hours of that free Saturday scrolling, watching, and waiting for something to happen. That is not a character flaw. That is not laziness. But it is quietly one of the biggest financial and psychological gaps between the people who build wealth and the people who wonder where their time went. What do millionaires actually do with a free Saturday? The answer is stranger than you expect. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Let's start with what most people assume. Most people assume that millionaires rest harder, that they are on yachts, that they are at spas, that free time for a wealthy person looks like a movie set of relaxation, and some do. But the research says something more interesting. In 2018, author Thomas Corley published findings from a 5-year study of self-made millionaires. He tracked their daily habits with granular detail. What he found was not that millionaires worked every second. It was that they spent their free time differently in ways that continued to generate value long after the Saturday was over. They treated their weekend like a second engine, not a full stop. The first thing most millionaires do with a free Saturday is read. Not scroll, not skim headlines, actually read. Corley found that 88% of self-made millionaires read for at least 30 minutes every single day. Not fiction for most of them. They read biographies, history, science, philosophy, and books about their industry. They are not reading to relax. They are reading to connect dots. They are building what psychologist Carol Dweck, who spent decades at Stanford studying achievement, would call a growth mindset in real time, one page at a time. Your brain does something specific when you read long-form material. It builds what neuroscientists call deep reading circuits. These are pathways in the prefrontal cortex that allow you to hold complex ideas, compare them, and generate new ones. Scrolling does not do this. Scrolling activates a different loop, one built around novelty and reaction. Both feel productive. Only one actually is. So on that Saturday morning, when you could read 30 pages of a book that rewires how you think about money, what happens instead? You check your phone. The phone wins, not because you're weak, but because it was engineered to win. Your attention is the product. The millionaire who built the wealth to buy that phone often protects their attention like an asset because they learned early that it is one. The second thing that comes up again and again in the habits of the wealthy is what you might call purposeful doing, not just doing, purposeful doing. Warren Buffett, arguably the most studied wealthy person alive, famously spends his free time playing bridge, not as a throwaway hobby, but as a game. He believes sharpens probabilistic thinking, the exact kind of thinking required to evaluate a business or a stock. His Saturdays are not vacations from his brain. They are a different kind of training for it. This is not unique to Buffett. The pattern shows up across professions and wealth levels. Millionaires in a free Saturday tend to do things with their hands and their minds simultaneously. They garden and think through a business problem. They cook a complicated meal and use the process to decompress and reset. They go on a long run and use the silence to generate ideas their busy week never had room for. The activity is never just the activity. It is also the container for something else. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi spent his career studying what he called flow states, those moments when you're so absorbed in a challenging task that time disappears and performance peaks. His research found that flow is most reliably triggered by activities that require skill and provide immediate feedback. A challenging hike, a difficult recipe, a new instrument, a puzzle. These are not random hobbies. They are flow generators, and people who regularly access flow states report higher levels of creativity, better decision-making, and significantly lower levels of anxiety. Ask yourself what your last genuine flow state felt like. Not the numbed-out scroll that sort of resembles rest. An actual state of absorption where you lost track of time doing something that used you fully. That is what the free Saturday of a person building wealth often looks like, and you almost never see it talked about. The third pattern is the one that feels least glamorous, but may be the most important. Millionaires use their free Saturdays to strengthen their relationships deliberately. This is not about networking in the formal sense. It is about something researcher Robert Waldinger has been tracking for over 80 years in the longest-running study on human happiness and success ever conducted. The Harvard Study of Adult Development, which Waldinger now directs, has followed the same individuals from youth into old age. The single clearest predictor of both health and financial stability across a lifetime was not income, not intelligence, not education. It was the quality of relationships. People with strong, close, reciprocal relationships are more resilient when they lose a job. They recover faster from setback. They make better decisions because they have people they trust enough to be honest with them. The millionaire who hosts a dinner on Saturday night, or shows up to a friend's difficult moment, or calls a mentor just to check in, is not wasting their Saturday. They are compounding a different kind of asset, one that does not appear on any balance sheet but shows up in every crisis. Now, here's the part that most people miss. The free Saturday is not just about what you do, it is about what you do not do. The wealthy, in study after study, are significantly more protective of what researchers call cognitive bandwidths. That is your brain's capacity to think clearly, make decisions, and resist impulsive choices. Psychologist Roy Baumeister at Florida State University spent years researching ego depletion, the idea that willpower and decision-making draw from a limited mental resource that depletes throughout the day. Every meaningless scroll, every passive hour of content consumption, every moment spent reacting rather than choosing, it costs something. It costs cognitive bandwidth. When you hand your Saturday over to an algorithm, you're not resting, you're spending bandwidth. You're making yourself slightly worse at the decisions that matter. The millionaire who protects their Saturday morning for deep reading, a long walk, a slow breakfast with someone they love, they are not being lazy or indulgent. They are defending a resource. They understand intuitively what the research shows explicitly, that the quality of your thinking on Monday morning depends significantly on what you did with your Saturday. This is where the financial connection becomes visible, because the gap between the person building wealth and the person wondering why they cannot seems enormous when you measure it in income, but when you measure it in hours and habits and cognitive bandwidth, it is much, much smaller. It is the difference between 30 minutes of reading and 30 minutes of scrolling. It is the difference between a walk that lets your brain wander productively and a couch that lets your brain go numb. It is the difference between calling someone you trust and liking their post instead. None of these feel like big choices in the moment. That is exactly why they matter so much. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman, who won the Nobel Prize for his work on human judgment and decision-making, described two systems of thinking. System 1 is fast, automatic, reactive. System 2 is slow, deliberate, effortful. Most of Saturday for most people is pure System 1. React to this notification, react to this video, react to this headline. Millionaires, not all of them and not perfectly, but as a pattern, use their free time to engage System 2 more often. They think slowly on purpose because they know the fast thinking happens by default. There's something almost uncomfortable about how simple this sounds when you say it out loud. Read something that challenges you. Do something that requires real skill. Build real relationships. Protect your attention. That is it. That is the Saturday blueprint. Not a yacht, not a private jet, not a lifestyle that requires you to already have the money. The uncomfortable truth is that the habits that build wealth are available to almost anyone. The Saturday that looks different enough over enough weeks to genuinely change where you end up financially is not a fantasy. It is 30 minutes of a book you did not expect to like. It is a run without headphones where you actually think. It is a phone call instead of a post. It is a meal you cook slowly because the process was the point. The real distance between you and a different financial future is not the distance between your bank account and theirs. It is the distance between reaching for your phone 11 minutes after waking up and waiting just a little longer, long enough to choose what Saturday becomes. Picture this. It is Saturday morning. You have nowhere to be, no alarm, no meeting, no obligation pulling at you. And this time, you know exactly what to do first.